What's going on, everybody? Thank you all so much for tuning in to another episode of Mi Casa es Su Casa. I am your host, Niko House. I want to urge you all to join our one follow, $1 campaign on Patreon. You can do so by clicking on the Patreon link below or going to www.patreon.com/Mi Casa es Su Casa. Also, go visit our website as well at www.mcscnetwork.com. And homepage that, bookmark it for more updates on news, politics, social issues, sports, whatever. You got everything you need right there. If you have an iOS device, you can actually go to the website on your phone or your iPad, click on the button where it allows you to share or whatever, and then just click add to home, and it will actually allow you to turn that into like a little mini app, if you will. So make sure you do that. So I do want to cover an issue that we have been covering, it seems like for years at this point, which is election fraud. Many of you know I'm very, very skeptical of the Democratic Party, and I think I reserve the reason to be skeptical, considering that I was not only did I work for Bernie Sanders, I volunteered for Bernie Sanders. I spoke for him. I've spent hours of my life in dollars from my account, along with many of you, and we saw the Democratic Party not only cheat him, but cheat him under the guise that he was not an electable candidate, which we know is a lie. And then we saw progressive candidates running in primaries across the country, including one, Tim Canova, who is currently in a battle right now to get justice for the election fraud that he experienced by the hands of Debbie Wasserman Schultz. We saw those candidates get cheated time and time again. California right now, Ray Lutz has an active lawsuit against election fraud and ballot tampering. So we fast forward to 2018, right? They say dim exit. We have a unity commission on the DNC. We have everything we need. All we have to do is get out and vote. You get out and vote and all of your problems will be solved. If you run a clean campaign, if you do what you're supposed to do, if you knock on those doors, if you canvass, if you have the right message, and that message reaches the right people, that blue wave, that blue progressive wave will knock you off your feet. Well, ladies and gentlemen, I have some bad news. It's not the case, and you can ask the should-be Congresswoman Marie Newman out of Chicago.
Have not stopped since 2016. This week there was this week there was a Democratic primary in Illinois between a right-wing Democrat, really a Republican, Daniel Lipinski, and a progressive Democrat, Marie Newman. The New York Times was tracking the results as they came in. With 86% reporting, Newman, the progressive, was winning and had gotten 7,112 votes in Will County. Then, a few minutes later, with 88% reporting, Newman was suddenly losing, and her vote total in Will County had dropped to 4,212. Man, that is a rough loss. As more votes came in, Marie Newman suddenly saw nearly half her votes in Will County vanish. And it's just like mo money, mo problems. It is, because it's the more votes you get, the less votes you have.
She ran against a corporatist, centrist, really even to a large degree right-wing Democrat who was actually against any type of abortion rights. So yeah, she walked and talked her message. She was a progressive candidate. She was very well built up a solid progressive coalition, and she at 86% was actually winning. At 86%, she was beating Lipinski by 3,000. She had gotten well over, she was only losing by 1,000 votes in Cook County, which obviously is the largest county in Chicago. That is the county that the largest county in Illinois. That's the county that Chicago was in. She was also beating him by several thousand votes in Will County. In fact, she wasn't beating him by like a little bit. She had over 7,000. Then he had about 2,000. So 86% she was winning. But it gets better, ladies and gentlemen. All of a sudden, fast forward, few percentage points down. She loses 4,000 votes. In Will County, Lipinski, gains 1,000 in Cook County and beats her by this much. By this much. Just enough to inch by. Her votes in Cook County are frozen. He gains 1,000 and that's how he wins. And she, of course, her votes in Cook County got frozen, right? In Will County, she actually lost 4,000. He gained 1,000. He stayed the same in Will County. He gained 1,000 in Cook County. He stayed the same in Will County. And he wins. And the Democratic Party is wondering why so many of us are so skeptical about the democratic process. The DNC Unity Commission, the Reform Commission, whatever they want to call themselves, is curious as to why we don't believe they are going to make any progress, and that it shows really the Unity Commission has failed the progressive that it is claimed it is here to help. Hell, the Unity Commission just lost a few major victories, including money out of politics in the DNC, and yet we've heard nothing about that from them. In fact, the Unity Commission has pretty much failed at every single reform that they have proposed on behalf of the quote-unquote Bernie Crat or Bernie Sanders progressives. Like I said, I think myself and others reserve the right to be a little more than skeptical. It gets even better though. Vox wrote a story talking about Marie Newman. Her loss is a good sign for the party. No. Or good sign for progressives. It's not. It's not, people. They even go on to she almost won against an establishment candidate. They use the dog whistle words. She ran because of Trump. She's a woman. She's for civil rights. And yet here we are. They're going to convince people that, oh, her almost victory is a victory, but what it really is it's an overwhelming failure. That's what it really is. It's not her. If she would have lost, if she would have gotten absolutely obliterated, then maybe we could look for a consolation prize. But there is no consolation prize outside of the fact that we know progressives are viable, but progressives can't win because the Democratic Party is going out of their way to cheat them. And by the way, they don't cheat them by just beating them at the ballots, reversing their votes, but they cheat them before they even run. They cheat them when they're, if you ever read the DCC, the DCCC email that Mike Sonato reported on, they said, hey, you can't actually attack your opponent. You have to go on a unity tour with your opponent after you lose your election. Oh, by the way, you are going to lose it because we're endorsing them ahead of you. We're going to fund them also, just letting you know. Well, you can't get endorsed by anybody else. I mean, any other party. I mean, the list goes on about things that you are not allowed to do, even if your establishment opponent decides to do so. Just in Florida, we had the Democratic Party all but endorse another candidate, fund her campaign, all but endorse an establishment candidate against a progressive candidate, fund the establishment candidate's campaign, run her in events and activism events like the Women's March, make her and allow her to be the chair of the Women's March executive board, both nationally and locally, even though that is illegal to collect money from a nonprofit such as the Women's March, and then run for office. It's legal. Democratic Party doesn't care about the law though. Marie Newman won. At 86%, she had won. They stole votes from her. After she won, people, she won the election. This is a machine sending the results to another machine at the New York Times. A machine to a machine. And it was perfectly accurate. And then at the end, New York Times isn't paying that close of attention to that. And they might have even tried to change it before anybody caught on, but screenshots are so fast. This isn't a person. This is a machine. Yet. But hey, Dementor. This is why Dementor does not work in states like Illinois. You have to fight them. You have to reform the infrastructure. You have to change the electoral process at its very core. You cannot be concerned about parties and Dem Enter, Dem Exit, and Green Party and Republican. Like that's important, but that is secondary if we don't have a coalition dedicated to election reform, which several of us are working on. But I just want to be very clear and upfront. You can have the biggest party in the damn country. The biggest party is not necessarily the most powerful party. For all we know, like I said, the biggest party, which isn't actually a party, but the biggest party is the independent party, if you will. Unaffiliated. But they continue to convince us that all of them are not powerful enough to get any of, whether it be Green Party candidate with Joe Stein or Gary Johnson with the Libertarian Party, that none of them are even enough to get up to 5% of the vote during the general election. No matter how many people we have in an independent world. I'd love to know your thoughts about this. Make sure you subscribe. Leave your thoughts in your comments below. Go to www.mcscnetwork.com. Donate to our Patreon. One follow, $1 campaign. And always remember, more than anything, ladies and gentlemen, find your balance. Peace.